Hey guys, what's going on? So in this video, we'll be learning about the print function. Now you might be wondering why now I introduced print function. Well, print function, we have been using it a lot since the beginning of this course. Well, there are a couple of things that you need to know about print function. That's why I created this. All right, so in this video, we will not only be looking into how print function works and what exactly it does, and we'll also be learning about a couple of parameters that you can pass along with the print function to format your output. Okay, let's begin. So as you know that print function is used to print out any data type that you pass inside the brackets. So if I put a string, it will print me out the string. To show you, let me actually do that. And let me actually put a list, say 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I run it, it will print me a list and so on and so forth. So basically print is used to print out any data type that is permitted by the Python. That's it. That's the basic definition of print function. Now, what happens when I introduce another print function? They put some another value, say hello. And what do you think is going to be the output? So let's run and check. So as you can see, they both are on the different line, and I will tell you the reason why in a bit. Let me add one more print function. If I add one more print function, say in this case, let's put some other data type dictionary, say 1, 2, 2, 3. And if I print it, you will notice it gets printed one after the other on the new line. Let's look why it happens. When you print out, notice that this cursor over here, this cursor, well, it is responsible for outputting, right? So initially the cursor starts from the beginning right here, and it keeps on printing the values that it encounters, and it reaches the end, right? Now after reaching the end, the cursor have to shift this line and get on to the next line's beginning, right? Now we'll be looking how this cursor switches this line, and remember that wherever cursor stops, from there only the next output gets printed. So let me actually bring up that code again. Okay, when we did this print function, what it did was it printed 1, 2, 3, 4 list, and the cursor went on to the next line's beginning. Now, after coming here, it later encountered the print hello. So it printed hello, and the cursor came to the end, and then it went to the next line's beginning. It actually printed this dictionary, and the cursor went to the next line. Although it's not visible, but in reality, it went to the next line. So why does this happen? I don't want print function to print on the next line. I want the print function to print on the same line. Say for example, 1, 2, 3, 4 and hello. Okay, there are a couple of ways to do that. First way is via using multiple print statements, and the second way is via using single print statement. Now if you want to use multiple print statement, you might ask this, hey, is there any way I can edit this cursor not to shift line? Well, we can do that. And let me introduce a parameter called as the end parameter. Okay, let's make use of this end parameter. So let me go ahead and delete all those prints. Okay, so you would implement end parameter something like this. You do a print, pass the value, and after that you put the end parameter, and end parameter decides what the cursor should do next after printing the item inside the bracket. So by default, the end has a value, and that value is called the \n, and the \n is called as the new line character. Why? Because \n enables the cursor to move to the next line's beginning. So that's why it printed 1, 2, 3, 4, and by default the end parameter is there and has a value of \n. Hence it went on to the new line. And I think that fairly sums up why when you use multiple print statement, it defaults to the next line. Let me actually go ahead and show you that. Print hi. So if I go ahead and run it, you will notice that it didn't print me the \n, which we mentioned over here, because as I told you, end parameter commands the cursor to print what after it printed the main item which it was supposed to print. Or you can say end parameter specifies the cursor how to end the print function. \n is called a new line character. Hence it did not print \n because \n commanded the cursor to move on to the next line's beginning. Hence it did. It went to the next line's beginning, and when it encountered hi, as I told you earlier, print function will print its output from the current location of cursor. So the cursor is at the second line's beginning, and that's why it printed hi. And default end value is \n. We didn't pass it, so it's defaulted to new line character. And I think you got the point of new line character. Now, still our question is unanswered. How to print multiple print statements on the same line? Well, we can actually hack this end parameter by saying, hey, no, you don't need to print \n. Instead, print me with a space, right? So cursor would, instead of moving to the next line, it would print a space, and when it encounters next print function, it has not moved on to the next line. So that means the cursor is still on the first line after it printed a space, and it will print hi. But here after printing hi, we have a new line character. That's why it will go on to the next line and it will print 1. Let me run it. There you go. So cursor actually printed HELLO. The cursor is situated after O. Now it encountered the end parameter and we overrid the end parameter with a space. So it will print a space, and now the cursor is after the space, and later when it encountered this print statement, it printed from the current position of the cursor. And here after hi, we know that it defaults to the new line character, and that's why 1 is printed at the new line character. So we can also format our output like this. Say we can also put a slash, and if we run it, if I put end equals to a space over here, and if I run it, there you go. You can completely format your output like this. And I think you got the point of using the end parameter. Cool. So that's how you print multiple print statements output on the same line. Now let's quickly go ahead and cover the other case where we use single print statement to print multiple values on the same line. So let me go ahead and print the first object. Let it be string. And remember, there are two ways you can print multiple objects on the same line. First is what we discussed earlier via using the end parameter. And the second is, let me actually go ahead and delete this end parameter comment. Now the second way is via using a comma. We can actually make use of comma to print multiple objects on the same line. So if I do hello, let me pass a dictionary too. And let me go ahead and print this one. Now you would notice that by default, there is a space after each object being printed. So hello, then we have a space, and after this list, we have a space, and so on. Now you might be thinking, is there any way to hack this one too? While we used multiple print statement, we could have used the end parameter. Well, the end parameter works for multiple print statements. So how do we do this in a single print statement? Well, we make use of something called as the sep parameter. All right, so come to the end and put a sep parameter, and here you can specify how you want to separate these individual objects. Okay, so one thing to remember is that sep defaults to space. All right, let's actually remove the space between all the objects. So if I try to print it, you notice that everything is printed soon after the other. There is no space in between, and it feels like everything gets appended together. Cool. Let me actually go ahead and put a / and run it. There you go. And by default, the value of sep parameter is space. There you go. Which brings us to something. Okay, so what happens if I put a \n over here, which I told you many times, it's called a new line character, and it is responsible for commanding the cursor to go back to a new line. If I do that, you would notice that it will completely replicate as if we are using 3 print functions, right? So after printing this hello, it put a \n after that, which tells the cursor to go back to a new line. And after printing this object, this list object, the sep parameter once again tells it to go back to a new line, and it actually replicates as if we are using multiple print statements. So alright guys, that's all for this video. We learned about how print function works and how cursor moves after printing each object. Therein, we also learned about the end parameter, and the end parameter defines how to print the next print function, and end parameter works best with multiple print statements. And while if you are not a fan of multiple print statement and you want to use a single print statement, you can make use of the sep parameter to tell the cursor what it needs to print after printing each object separated by commas. Okay guys, that's all for this video, and if you really like this video, make sure to support us. The simplest and the easiest way to support us is by hitting the like button and subscribing to our channel. You can also spread the word to others who really want to learn more about Python and other tech stack, and we'll be happy and glad to help them. And this will also help us to grow as we are a new channel. Alright guys, see you in the next lecture.